Grace Jones stood in the Lee mansion with a packed bag at her feet. She wasn't visiting family. She was hiding. 3 months ago, her husband was buried. 2 weeks after that, men started calling. By tonight, they had stopped calling. Kang Jun-ho watched her from across the marble hall. At 73, he didn't raise his voice. He didn't rush. Everyone else did that for him. "You should have disappeared after the funeral," he said. "Coming back here was a mistake." Grace didn't flinch. "Your son's debts followed me. They want payment, or me." Silence. The guards shifted. No one met Kang's eyes. Grace noticed everything: where the exits were, which guards carried real weapons, which ones were just decoration. She had learned fast. Survival demanded it. "They won't touch you," Kang said. "Not while you're under my roof." "That's not protection," Grace replied. "That's ownership." For the first time, his jaw tightened. A phone buzzed. Kang glanced at the screen, and something changed. Not anger, not control, urgency. "They found your address," he said. "We leave now." Grace froze. "Who?" "The same people who killed my son." The words hit harder than the truth itself. As they moved, Kang grabbed her wrist. Not gentle, not cruel, necessary. "This doesn't mean you're safe," he said low. "It means you're involved." Grace met his eyes, steady. "I've been involved since the day I married into your family." Their steps slowed. Too close now, too aware. "You're my father-in-law," she said. "We can't do this." Kang didn't let go. "In my world," he said, "what we want is always the most dangerous thing." They disappeared into the night, partners first, feelings later, while enemies closed in from every direction. And Grace finally understood. Her husband didn't die by accident, and Kang Jun-ho wasn't pushing her away to protect her. He was trying not to want her. If you think this is a love story, you're already wrong. Before heading to the main story, comment below. Would you trust the man everyone fears, or run while you still can? Grace had exactly $47 in her account when the first threat arrived. It came wrapped in black paper, delivered to her studio apartment in Itaewon with surgical precision. No postmark, no return address, just her name written in Hangul characters she'd learned to recognize. Samang Yejong, death scheduled. She didn't panic. Panic was a luxury she'd given up at age 12, watching her mother scrub floors in Detroit while men in expensive suits explained why they were taking their house. Grace had learned early, the world doesn't reward fear, it rewards strategy. But standing in Kang Jun-ho's private study 3 hours later, strategy felt inadequate. The room smelled of leather and aged whiskey. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked Seoul's glittering skyline, a city that had never quite felt like home despite 2 years of marriage to Dae-hyun. The walls held artifacts, ancient Korean pottery, Japanese swords, a single photograph of a young woman Grace had never asked about. Kang sat behind his desk, reviewing documents with the focus of a surgeon. He didn't look up when she entered, didn't acknowledge her presence until she spoke. The note said Friday. That's 4 days. "I'm aware." His pen moved across paper, signing something in fluid Hangul. "Sit." Grace remained standing. "I need to know what my husband was involved in. The real story, not the accident report the police sold me." Finally, Kang set down his pen. When he looked at Grace, she saw the calculation happening behind his eyes. How much to reveal, how much to bury. She'd seen that look in courtrooms, back when she'd worked as a paralegal in Chicago. The look of someone weighing truth against survival. Dae-hyun made choices, Kang said carefully. Choices that complicated family business. Your family business involves threatening widows? No. His voice dropped to something dangerous. My family business involves protecting them. The people threatening you are competitors. They believe you have information about my son's activities before his death. Do I? Kang stood, moving to the window. At 73, he carried himself like a man decades younger. No stoop, no shuffle, just controlled power. Dae-Hyun kept secrets, even from me. Bank accounts in Taiwan, property deeds in Singapore. He was building an exit strategy. From you? From this life. Kang's reflection in the glass looked tired. He wanted to take you away from all of this. He was smarter than I gave him credit. Grace processed this, her mind working through implications. And when he died, these competitors assumed I inherited his escape plan. Correct. But I didn't. They don't believe you. The silence stretched between them, heavy with unspoken threats. Grace thought about running. She had cousins in Atlanta, a sister in London, places she could disappear. But running required resources she didn't have, and these people had found her once. They'd find her again. So what now? She asked. You play bodyguard until they get bored? Kang turned from the window, and for the first time since she'd known him, something like approval flickered across his face. You're not asking me to fix this for you. Why? Because I learned a long time ago that no one saves you but yourself. Grace crossed her arms. But I also learned that smart people leverage their assets. Right now, you're my only asset worth leveraging. I'm not an asset, Grace. I'm a liability. Then we're both liabilities who need each other alive. The corner of his mouth twitched. Not quite a smile, but close. Dae-Hyun said you were brilliant. He wasn't wrong. He also said his father was a businessman. He was lying. Yes. The admission hung in the air, stark and honest. Grace appreciated that. She'd had enough of comfortable lies, from her mother about their finances, from Dae-Hyun about his family, from herself about being safe in this glittering foreign city. Tell me what you actually do, she said. Kang poured 2 glasses of whiskey, expensive stuff that probably cost more than her monthly rent. He handed her one. I move things that shouldn't be moved. Money primarily, sometimes information, occasionally people who need to disappear. That's money laundering, among other things. Grace sipped the whiskey. It burned smooth and golden down her throat. And the people threatening me? Young Tae-sung. He runs operations in Gangnam. He believes Dae-Hyun stole from him $3 million in cryptocurrency, traced to accounts your husband accessed 2 weeks before the crash. Did he? Probably. Kang's honesty was refreshing in its brutality. Dae-Hyun was trying to buy your freedom. He wasn't careful enough. Grace set down her glass, her mind racing through options. So Tae-sung thinks I have access to $3 million I didn't know existed, and you think, what, that keeping me close keeps you alive? No. Kang's expression hardened. Keeping you alive keeps me human. It's what Dae-Hyun would have wanted. It's what I owe him for being the father I was. The vulnerability in that statement caught Grace off guard. She'd expected calculation, manipulation, the cold logic of criminal pragmatism. Instead, she got something raw and real: grief, guilt, the desperate attempt at redemption from a man who'd probably never sought it before. How bad was it? She asked quietly. Your relationship with him. Kang finished his whiskey in one smooth motion. I taught him the business when he was 16. He watched me break a man's hand for stealing. That night, he told me he hated what I was, what I'd made him become. We barely spoke for 10 years after that. Until he met me. Until he met you. Kang's voice softened, just slightly. He called me, excited like a boy. Said he'd found someone who saw him for who he really was, not what our name meant. He asked my permission to marry you. I said yes, because I thought maybe you could save him from this world. I was wrong. He died anyway. He died anyway. The weight of shared grief settled between them, unexpected and binding. Grace had spent 3 months angry at Kang, angry at his absence from the funeral, his silence, his refusal to acknowledge her calls. Now she understood. He hadn't been distant, he'd been drowning. The crash wasn't an accident, she said. It wasn't a question. No. Tae-sung? We don't know. The brake lines were cut. Professional work. Could have been Tae-sung's people, could have been others. I have many enemies, Grace. My son inherited them all. Grace moved to the window, looking out at Seoul's neon sprawl. Somewhere in that city, people were planning her death with the same efficiency Kang probably used to plan his business deals. The thought should have terrified her. Instead, it clarified everything. I want to help, she said. Help how? Find who killed Dae-hyun. Get Tae-sung off our backs, whatever it takes. She turned to face him. You said I'm smart, so use me. Teach me what I need to know. Kang studied her for a long moment, his expression unreadable. This isn't a game, Grace. The people I deal with, they don't forgive mistakes. They don't show mercy. If I bring you into this, there's no going back. I stopped having the option of going back the day they sent me that note. Grace held his gaze. I'm in this whether you want me or not. Question is, am I in it alone, or am I in it with someone who actually knows how to survive? The silence stretched. Grace watched calculations happen behind Kang's eyes. Risk assessment, probability matrices, the cold math of survival. She'd seen similar expressions on loan sharks in Detroit, men who weighed human life against profit margins. But when Kang finally spoke, there was something else in his voice, something that sounded almost like hope. Tomorrow morning, 6 a.m. Wear dark clothes, comfortable shoes. Bring nothing you can't afford to lose. Where are we going? To meet the people who want you dead. Let's see if we can convince them you're more valuable alive. Grace's heart hammered, but she kept her voice steady. That's your plan? Walk into the lion's den? No. Kang's smile was sharp and dangerous. That's my introduction. The plan comes after, when they realize they've underestimated us both. 6 a.m. came with rain, the heavy Seoul kind that turned streets into mirrors and made the city feel smaller, more claustrophobic. Grace dressed in black jeans and a dark hoodie, practical clothes that wouldn't restrict movement. She'd slept 3 hours, her mind churning through scenarios, probabilities, exit strategies. Old habits from Detroit, where thinking ahead meant the difference between eating and going hungry. Kang's driver picked her up in a black Mercedes, windows tinted illegal dark. No conversation, just efficient silence as they wound through morning traffic toward Gangnam. The city transformed as they drove, from Itaewon's international chaos to the pristine wealth of Seoul's richest district, where buildings gleamed like teeth and money moved through invisible channels. They stopped at a restaurant, expensive, the kind where politicians and CEOs made deals over $200 beef. It wasn't open yet, but the door unlocked when Kang approached, like the building itself recognized him. Inside, 5 men waited at a corner table. Grace cataloged them instantly. 2 bodyguards flanking the exits, 2 advisors in cheap suits, and at the center, Young Tae-sung himself. He was younger than she'd expected, maybe 45, gym fit, expensive watch, the kind of handsome that came with wealth and ruthless ambition. When he smiled at her entrance, Grace saw calculation behind it, the look of a man appraising merchandise. Kang Jun-ho, Tae-sung said in Korean, then switched to English. And the famous widow. You're braver than I expected. Kang pulled out a chair for Grace, a gesture of old-world courtesy that felt strange in this predatory space. She sat, keeping her spine straight, her expression neutral. We're here to discuss terms, Kang said simply. Terms? Tae-sung laughed, harsh and sharp. You bring the woman who stole $3 million from me and call it terms? I didn't steal anything, Grace said before Kang could respond. All eyes turned to her. She kept her voice steady, channeling every courtroom confidence trick she'd learned as a paralegal. I didn't know about the cryptocurrency. I didn't know about my husband's accounts. I barely knew what he did for breakfast most mornings. Convenient ignorance. Honest ignorance. Grace leaned forward slightly. But here's what I do know. You're running a protection racket in Hongdae. You've got 3 judges on your payroll, and your money flows through a shell corporation registered in the Caymans. My husband worked in financial tech. You think he needed to steal from you? He could have ruined you with a few keystrokes. The silence that followed was electric. Tae-sung's smile had vanished, replaced with something cold and dangerous. One of the bodyguards shifted, hand moving toward his jacket. Kang's voice cut through the tension like a blade. She's right. If Dae-hoon wanted to hurt you, Tae-sung, he would have done worse than steal. He would have exposed you. Then why the missing $3 million? Insurance, Grace said, the pieces clicking together as she spoke. She was guessing, but it felt right, felt true in the way patterns always did when they aligned. He took it as leverage, protection. He was planning to disappear, and he needed something to ensure you wouldn't follow. If you killed him, the information goes public. If you left him alone, you get your money back. Tae-sung's expression shifted, suspicion warring with interest. You're saying he had a dead man's switch? I'm saying my husband was smarter than both of you gave him credit for. Grace held his gaze. And I'm saying I can find it. This was the gamble. She had no idea if Dae-hoon had set up any such mechanism, no clue to even start looking. But she'd learned long ago that confidence sells better than competence, and right now, staying alive meant selling hard. Kang's hand found hers under the table, a subtle squeeze, warning or support, she couldn't tell. But he didn't contradict her, didn't undercut the play. He was letting her run with it. How long? Tae-sung asked. Give me 1 week. You have 3 days. 5, Kang interjected, and you leave her alone during that time. No surveillance, no threats, no accidents. She can't work if she's looking over her shoulder. Tae-sung considered this, his fingers drumming against the table's polished surface. Fine. 5 days. But understand, if you're lying, if this is some stall tactic, I won't just kill you both. I'll make it educational. Noted, Grace said, her voice dry despite the fear coiling in her stomach. They left the restaurant with no handshakes, no formal agreements, just the weight of an ultimatum hanging over them like Seoul's polluted sky. In the Mercedes, Grace finally let herself breathe. That was incredibly stupid, Kang said. But it worked. For 5 days. Then we need to deliver something we don't have. Grace pulled out her phone, opening Dae-hoon's cloud storage, something she'd barely touched since his death, too painful to explore. Maybe we do have it. He was methodical. If he set up a dead man switch, he'd have left instructions somewhere. Where do we start? His office, the one you sealed after the funeral. Kang's expression darkened. There's a reason I sealed it, Grace. Some of what's in there, it's not pretty. I didn't ask for pretty. I asked for survival. The drive to Kang's compound took 40 minutes through rain-slicked streets. The property sat in Songbuk-dong, old money territory, surrounded by walls that had protected the Lee family for 3 generations. Inside, the house felt like a museum, traditional Korean architecture mixed with modern security, beauty wrapped in paranoia. Dae-hoon's office was in the East Wing, 3rd floor, overlooking a garden Grace had never seen maintained. Kang unlocked it with a key he wore around his neck, the door swinging open to reveal a space frozen in time, papers still scattered on the desk, coffee cups still sitting by the computer, jacket hanging on the back of the chair like its owner might return any moment. Grace's chest tightened, grief hitting sudden and sharp. She pushed through it. I need access to his computer, she said. It's encrypted. We tried. I know his password. Grace moved to the desk, booting up the system. When the prompt appeared, she typed, Grace and Dae-hoon forever, 0728, their wedding date. The computer unlocked. Kang exhaled slowly behind her. He loved you very much. I know, Grace's voice caught. That's why I have to do this right. She spent 3 hours combing through files, financial records, encrypted messages, folders labeled with innocuous names that hid devastating content. Kang brought her tea, then whiskey, staying silent while she worked, occasionally pointing out names or transactions that meant something in his world of shadows and blood money. Around hour 4, Grace found it, a folder titled Insurance Policy, nested inside another folder called Vacation Photos 2022. Inside were documents, screenshots, video files, enough evidence to dismantle Tae-sung's entire operation, bank records showing laundered money, photos of meetings with government officials, audio recordings of orders given, crimes committed, violence delegated. But the real weapon was simpler. A single email drafted but never sent, addressed to 3 journalists and 2 prosecutors. The subject line read, "The Young Tae-sung Files, to be sent upon my death." He actually did it, Grace whispered. Kang read over her shoulder, his expression grim. The email trigger, it's tied to a heartbeat monitor app. As long as Dae-hyun logged in every 72 hours, the email stayed unsent. And when he died, the app couldn't reach him, but the email never sent because... Kang clicked through settings, then cursed softly in Korean. He disabled the final trigger right before the crash, like he knew something was coming. Grace's blood ran cold. He was trying to protect someone. You. If that email sent, Tae-sung would have assumed you released it. You'd have been dead within hours. The weight of that sacrifice settled over Grace like a shroud. Dae-hyun had died protecting her, had disabled his own insurance policy to keep her safe, even though it meant leaving her vulnerable to the very people he feared. "We need to reactivate the trigger," Grace said. "If Tae-sung thinks it's still live, he'll back off. Or he'll kill us both before it can send. You have a better idea?" Kang was quiet for a long moment. Then, "Yes, we use this as leverage, but we also give him an out. Show him enough to prove it exists, offer to destroy the evidence in exchange for forgiveness of the debt and guaranteed safety. He'll never agree to that. He will if the alternative is prison or death from his own enemies. These files, they implicate people higher up than Tae-sung, politicians, police chiefs, people who'd kill him to protect themselves." Kang's smile was sharp. "We're not just threatening him, we're offering him survival." Grace looked at the screen, at the evidence of her husband's careful rebellion, his secret war against the life he'd been born into. She thought about Dae-hyun's last weeks, the tension in his shoulders, the way he'd held her tighter at night, the unspoken goodbye in every kiss. "He wanted out," she said quietly. "He wanted us both out." "Yes. Then let's finish what he started." They worked until midnight, crafting the approach, preparing the presentation, running through scenarios like generals planning a battle. Grace's legal background proved useful. She knew how to frame evidence, how to build a case that felt airtight even when it relied on bluffs and strategic omissions. Kang taught her the other side, how to read body language in dangerous men, where to sit in a negotiation for psychological advantage, which threats carried weight and which were merely theater. He was a good teacher, patient and precise, explaining the architecture of power in Seoul's underworld like a professor teaching case law. Around 2 a.m., exhausted, they sat in Kang's study sharing bourbon. "You're good at this," Kang said. "The strategy, the reading people. It's natural for you. I grew up watching loan sharks circle my mother. You learn fast or you drown." Grace swirled her glass. "What I don't understand is why you're doing this, really doing this. You could have paid Tae-sung off, made me disappear, solved the problem without all this risk." Kang stared into his bourbon like it held answers. "When Dae-hyun was 7, he watched me kill a man. Not directly, I didn't pull the trigger, but I gave the order, and he was there, and he understood what it meant. I saw something die in his eyes that day, some kind of innocence, Some belief that his father was good. I never got it back. That's not an answer. The answer is I failed my son every day of his life. I taught him violence when I should have taught him virtue. I made him ashamed of his own blood. And when he finally found happiness with you, when he finally became the man I should have raised, I was too proud to admit I'd been wrong. Kang's voice cracked, just slightly. So now I protect what he loved. It's the only redemption I have left. Grace felt something shift in her chest, some wall she'd maintained crumbling. You're not responsible for his death, aren't I? If he wasn't my son, if he didn't carry my name, he'd still be alive. You'd be happy. The world would be brighter. And if he wasn't your son, I never would have met him at all. Grace met his eyes. For better or worse, this is the hand we were dealt. We can fold or we can play it smart. If you believe in second chances and impossible redemption, hit that subscribe button. Join the Love and Tension family, because this story is just getting started, and Grace's next move will change everything. Kang smiled then, real and warm. My son chose well. So did yours. They sat in companionable silence, two broken people finding unexpected solidarity in shared grief and shared danger. Outside, souls slept, unaware that in this mansion, in this study, two unlikely allies were preparing to wage war against an empire built on fear. And somewhere in the city, young Tae-sung was making his own plans, counting down the 5 days until blood would spill again. Day 3 of their borrowed time arrived with unwelcome news. Tae-sung had sent flowers. 20 black roses delivered to Grace's apartment at dawn. No card needed. The message was clear. I'm thinking of you. Grace threw them in the trash without ceremony. She'd moved into Kang's compound after the meeting, a practical decision wrapped in survival instinct. The guest room she'd been given overlooked the garden where Dae-hyun used to practice calligraphy in the mornings. Sometimes, late at night, she'd stand at the window and imagine she could still see him there, brush moving across paper, creating beauty in a house built on violence. This morning, she had different concerns. We need to meet Tae-sung in person, Grace said over breakfast. Kang had just returned from his morning routine, an hour in the basement gym, fighting ghosts through precise martial movements. Even at 73, his body carried lethal efficiency. Show him the evidence. Make the offer face to face. Too dangerous. He'll have us killed the moment we walk in. Not if we make the meeting public. Grace pulled up her phone, showing him a location. Insadong, Saturday afternoon. Tourist crowds, street performers, too many witnesses for violence. He'll agree because it makes him look reasonable. Kang studied the screen, his strategist's mind working through angles. He'll have snipers. So will you. I don't have snipers anymore, Grace. I moved away from that kind of work a decade ago. Then it's time to make some calls. Kang's laugh was dry. You've been in this world a week and you're already thinking like a boss. I'm thinking like someone who wants to live past Friday. They spent the day preparing, verifying the evidence, backing it up to multiple secure servers, creating fail-safes within fail-safes. Grace worked with sharp focus, her paralegal training kicking in, every document cross-referenced, every piece of leverage cataloged and weaponized. Around 3 p.m., Kang's phone rang. He answered in Korean, his expression shifting from neutral to dangerous in seconds. When he hung up, his hands were clenched. What? Grace asked. They took Hana. Who's Hana? My housekeeper's daughter, 16 years old, good student, wants to be a doctor. Kang's voice was ice. They grabbed her leaving school, sent a video to prove they have her. He showed Grace his phone. The video was brief, a terrified girl in a basement, tears streaming, begging in Korean. In the background, a man's voice, calm and cold. 5 days is too long. We want answers now. Grace's stomach twisted. This is my fault. They took her to get to us. No. Kang's tone brooked no argument. This is Tae Sung's mistake. He just crossed a line he can't uncross. What line? Children. Kang stood, moving to his safe, pulling out a phone Grace had never seen. Older model, burner, the kind you use once, then destroy. He dialed a number, spoke rapid Korean, hung up. I made a promise after Daehyun died. No more violence, no more blood on my hands. I was done. And now? His smile was terrible. Now I'm going to remind Seoul why they used to fear the name Kang Jun-ho. What happened next was education in controlled brutality. Kang made 5 calls. Within 2 hours, people began arriving at the compound, not the loud, obvious muscle Grace expected, but quiet professionals. An elderly woman who spoke in whispers and carried a laptop. A thin man with scarred hands and empty eyes. A brother-sister pair who moved like synchronized dancers. Each one greeted Kang with deep respect, the kind earned through blood and loyalty. They gathered in the study, spreading maps across the table, not of Seoul's streets, but of its hidden architecture. Smuggling tunnels under Gangnam, safe houses in Mapo, the personal habits of young Tae Sung's key lieutenants, their schedules, their weaknesses, their sins. Hana's being held here, the elderly woman said, pointing to a location in Songsu-dong, warehouse district, mostly abandoned. 3 guards, 1 vehicle, minimal security because they think we don't know. They're wrong, Kang said simply. Grace watched the planning unfold with strange fascination. This wasn't the explosive action of movies, no dramatic speeches or bravado. Just cold, efficient problem-solving by people who'd spent lifetimes in shadows. They spoke in shorthand, referencing past operations, old strategies, the shared language of violence. I want to help, Grace said. Every head turned toward her. The thin man with scarred hands smiled, not kindly. This isn't TV, girl, he said in English. You'd be a liability. I speak Korean well enough to pass. I know the streets from living here, and I'm the one person they won't expect. Grace held Kang's gaze. Use me properly, I'm an asset. Leave me behind, I'm a weakness someone can exploit later. The silence stretched. The elderly woman, Grace learned her name was Yoon, studied her with calculating eyes. She's right, Yoon said finally. They've seen Kang. They know his people. Fresh face might slip through cracks. Absolutely not, Kang said. I'm not putting her in danger. I'm already in danger, Grace countered. Have been since Daehyun died. Difference is, this time I can do something about it. The argument went 3 rounds. Grace pushing, Kang resisting, the others watching like spectators at a tennis match. Finally, Kang relented, not because he agreed, Grace realized, but because she'd made it clear she'd find a way to help regardless, and at least this way he could control the variables. Her role was simple, distraction. While Kang's team moved on the warehouse from 3 angles, Grace would approach from the front, playing lost tourist, drawing attention at the critical moment. She'd have a tracking device, a panic button, and explicit instructions. The second things went wrong, she ran. They moved at 11 p.m., Seoul's night crowd providing cover. Grace wore a bright jacket over dark clothes, tourist camouflage that would drop away when needed. Her heart hammered as they approached Songsu-dong, the old industrial district with its hip cafes hiding among rusting warehouses. The Target building sat at the end of a quiet street, graffitied walls and broken windows, the kind of place the city had forgotten. 2 guards smoked outside, bored and careless. Inside, thermal imaging showed 4 heat signatures, 3 adults, 1 smaller form that had to be Hana. Grace approached at midnight, playing drunk, stumbling in her bright jacket, calling out in English and broken Korean. Excuse me, I'm lost. Where's Gangnam Station? The guard straightened, hands moving to weapons. Grace kept walking, oblivious, checking her phone, the perfect lost tourist. One guard moved to intercept her. That's when everything happened at once. Kang's team hit the back entrance, explosive charge blowing the lock in a muffled whump. The guard turning toward the sound, Grace dropping her phone, the distraction forgotten as the scarred man materialized from nowhere, blade finding throat before the guard could shout. Grace froze, watching violence unfold with documentary precision. The second guard drew a gun. Yoon shot him, silenced pistol spitting twice, professional and clean. Inside the warehouse, shouts, gunfire, the chaos of controlled assault. Kang appeared at Grace's elbow, gripping her arm. Move, now. They ran for the building, Grace shedding her bright jacket, following Kang through the shattered back entrance into darkness pierced by muzzle flashes. The smell hit her first, rust and piss and fear, the architecture of human cruelty. They found Hana in a corner room, tied to a chair, unhurt but terrified. Kang cut her bonds while Grace checked the hallway. Clear, she called, the word feeling surreal in her mouth, like playing soldier in someone else's war. They extracted in under 8 minutes, Hana wrapped in a blanket, Kang's team melting into Seoul's night like they'd never existed. No police sirens, no drama, just efficient violence concluded. Back at the compound, Hana's mother wept and thanked Kang in rapid Korean, while Grace stood apart, hands shaking with adrenaline crash. Later, in Kang's study, they reviewed what they'd learned. The guards talked before they died, Yoon reported. Tae-sung's planning something big. End of our 5 days, he never intended to let you both walk away clean. What kind of something? Kang asked. Public, visible. He wants to send a message about challenging his authority. Grace's mind raced through implications. He'll move at the Insadong meeting, turn our public safety into public execution. Then we don't go to Insadong. No. Grace straightened, pieces clicking together. We go, but we control it. Make him think he's walking into his moment of triumph while we're actually 10 steps ahead. Kang studied her, something like pride flickering in his expression. You have a plan. I have the beginning of one. The rest depends on how badly you want to bury Tae-sung. Define bury. Grace's smile was sharp. I mean make him disappear so thoroughly that Seoul forgets he ever existed. No bodies, no investigations, just gone. The room went quiet. Even Yoon, who'd killed without hesitation 2 hours ago, looked uncertain. That's not who I am anymore, Kang said quietly. No, but it's who Tae-sung thinks you are. And in this world, perception matters more than reality. Grace leaned forward. We give him what he expects, the old Kang Jun-ho, ruthless and final. But the actual work? Clean, legal, systematic. We use his own evidence against him, feed it to authorities who hate him as much as we do. He thinks he's facing a monster. Instead, he faces the system he spent years corrupting, finally turned against him. Kang was quiet for a long moment. Then, that's elegant. That's survival. They spent the rest of the night planning, Grace and Kang working in tandem, each compensating for the other's blind spots. She brought legal structure, he brought underworld knowledge. Together they built something hybrid and deadly, not quite criminal, not quite lawful, but effective in the space between. By dawn they had a framework. By noon the next day they had contacts reached, favors called in, pieces positioned. Prosecutors who'd spent years trying to nail Tae-sung received anonymous packages of evidence. Journalists got tips too specific to ignore. Politicians who owed Kang favors suddenly found their consciences awakened. And through it all, Grace watched Seoul's underground machinery churn, marveling at how much power could be wielded through whispers and strategic revelation. This was a different kind of violence, slower, quieter, but no less devastating. You're good at this, Kang said on day 4, watching Grace coordinate the final pieces. The orchestration, the patience. I watched my mother get destroyed by people who knew how systems worked. Took me years to understand she wasn't weak, she just didn't have the right weapons. Grace closed her laptop. I swore I'd never be that helpless again. You're not. No. She met his eyes. thanks to you." Something passed between them then, recognition deeper than gratitude. They were allies, yes, but something more. Two people who'd found unexpected strength in each other's company, who fit together in this violent world like pieces of a puzzle neither knew they were solving. Dangerous, Grace thought. This feeling was dangerous, but she'd worry about that after they survived. The morning of day 5 arrived cold and clear. Grace stood in her guest room, dressing carefully. Dark jeans, sturdy boots, a shirt that allowed movement. She'd learned from Kong that in dangerous situations, clothes were tactical choices. Everything mattered. Everything could save you or get you killed. Outside her window, the garden held frost like diamonds, beautiful and cold. Grace thought of Dae-Hyun's calligraphy, of mornings when the world seemed simpler. That version of herself, the one who'd believed in safe marriages and happy endings, felt like a stranger now. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. The message was brief. The Insadong meeting is canceled. Come to Namsan Tower instead. 2 p.m. Alone. Grace's blood chilled. She forwarded the message to Kong immediately. His response came fast. Don't respond. It's a trap. But Grace was already thinking past the obvious. Namsan Tower, public landmark, cable cars, tourist crowds. High ground, yes, but also limited exits. Tae-sung was trying to isolate them, separate them from the safety they'd built in public spaces. She called Kong. He knows our plan. Or he suspects. Kong's voice was tight with controlled tension. Either way, we need to adapt. They met in his study 30 minutes later, spreading maps of Namsan Tower and its surroundings. Yoon joined them, along with a scarred man. Tae-min, Grace had learned his name, and 2 others from Kong's inner circle. He'll have snipers positioned here, here, and here, Tae-min indicated points on the map. Cable car stations are choke points. Once you're up there, you're contained. So we don't go, Grace said. If we don't go, he'll know we're scared. It weakens our position. Kong traced the mountain paths with one finger. But we also can't walk into obvious death. Then we change the game. Grace pulled up her phone, showing them something she'd been working on since 4 a.m. Tae-sung thinks this is about intimidation, about forcing a meeting on his terms. What if we turn it into theater? What she proposed was audacious. Instead of hiding, they'd live stream the entire meeting. Social media, multiple platforms, thousands of witnesses in real time. Grace would wear a hidden camera. Kong would have audio backup. Every word, every threat, every moment would be captured and broadcast. He'll never agree to it, Yoon said. He won't know until it's too late. I start the stream on the way up. By the time we're face to face, we'll have 10,000 viewers. He kills us. He's doing it in front of an audience. Grace's smile was sharp. Even Tae-sung isn't that stupid. Kong was quiet, working through implications. It's risky. If something goes wrong, if the stream drops, then we improvise. But this gives us leverage we didn't have before. Public accountability in real time. They argued for an hour, poking holes in the plan, shoring up weaknesses, running scenarios. Finally, Kong nodded. We do it. But I want backup teams positioned at every exit, and the moment anything feels wrong, we extract. Grace agreed, though she knew extraction might not be possible. Some choices locked you in. Some paths had no reversal. They prepared carefully. Grace's camera was concealed in a pendant necklace. High quality, wide angle, robust streaming capability. Kong wore a secondary audio device disguised as a watch. They tested the equipment 3 times, verified backup power sources, created redundant streaming channels. At 1 p.m., they left for Namsan in separate vehicles. Grace rode with Tae-min, who briefed her on emergency signals, extraction procedures, what to do if shooting started. His voice was clinical, detached, like explaining how to change a tire rather than how to survive an assassination attempt. One thing, he said as they neared the mountain, If it goes bad, if you have to choose between saving yourself or waiting for Kong, I won't leave him, Grace interrupted. I wasn't going to say you should. I was going to say he'll never forgive himself if you die because of him. So if you care about the old man at all, you'll choose yourself. Understood? Grace didn't answer. She was too busy running final checks, confirming the stream was ready, preparing herself mentally for whatever came next. They met Kong at the base of the mountain, near the cable car station. Tourists milled around, taking photos, oblivious to the chess game unfolding. Grace started her live stream, angling the camera to capture Kong beside them, Soul spread out behind them. We're about to meet someone dangerous, she told the camera, her voice steady. If you're watching this, know that whatever happens next, the truth is being recorded. Screenshot it, save it, make sure it doesn't disappear. Already, viewers were flooding in, first dozens, then hundreds, then thousands. The comment section exploded with questions, concern, excitement. Grace pinned a comment with Tae-sung's name and a brief description of his crimes, making sure the audience knew exactly who they were about to witness. The cable car ride up was tense and surreal. Grace kept the camera rolling, narrating quietly, while Kang sat silent beside her, his presence solid and centering. Below them, Seoul sprawled like a circuit board, millions of lights in the afternoon haze. Whatever happens, Kang said quietly, you've been remarkable. My son saw your strength before I did. He was always smarter. We're not done yet. No, but in case we don't get another chance, thank you, Grace, for reminding me what it feels like to fight for something beyond survival. The cable car reached the top. They exited into crowds of tourists, following the path toward Namsan Tower's observation deck. Grace kept the stream running, camera panning to capture faces, making sure thousands of witnesses saw every step. Tae-sung waited at the top, flanked by 4 guards. He smiled when he saw them, the expression of a predator who'd finally cornered his prey. But when he noticed Grace's pendant, the smile faltered. Turn off the camera, he said in English. No, Grace replied. We're live. 5,000 people watching right now and growing. She saw the calculation in his eyes, the rapid assessment of new variables. He glanced at his guards, then back at Grace and Kang. Clever. But cameras can be destroyed. Do that and you're admitting guilt to thousands of witnesses. Grace stepped forward, conscious of the camera's eye. We didn't come here to hide, Mr. Yong. We came to make you an offer. I'm listening. We have evidence of your entire operation. Names, dates, bank accounts, murder orders. Enough to put you away for 3 lifetimes. Grace kept her voice clear, projecting for the audio. But we're not giving it to the police. Not yet. Tae-sung's expression shifted, interest warring with suspicion. What do you want? Nothing. We're giving you the evidence. All of it. Every copy, every backup. The surprise on his face was genuine. Why? Because my husband is dead, and revenge won't bring him back. Because I'm tired of being afraid. Because the only way this ends is if one of us chooses peace. Grace met his eyes. You can kill us, right here, on camera, in front of thousands of people. You can spend the rest of your life running from the consequences. Or you can take the evidence, destroy it, and let us walk away. Your empire stays intact. We disappear. Everyone survives. It was a lie, of course. The evidence was already distributed, already in the hands of prosecutors and journalists. But Tae-sung didn't know that. He only knew that this strange American woman was offering him something he'd thought impossible, a clean exit. And what's to stop me from killing you anyway after I get the evidence? He asked. Kang spoke for the first time. Because if anything happens to Grace, the full evidence releases automatically, not just to police, to your competitors, your partners, everyone who'd benefit from your destruction. We die, you're exposed. We live, you're safe. This part was true. They'd built the dead man switch carefully, modeled after Dae-hyun's original design. Mutual assured destruction, the cold logic of nuclear deterrence applied to underworld politics. Taesung thought for a long moment, tourists passing around them, oblivious to the negotiation happening. Grace watched the stream viewer count climb, 8,000 now, then 10,000, the comment section exploding with speculation and concern. You have guts, both of you, more than I expected. Does that mean we have a deal? Grace asked. It means I'll think about it. He gestured to his guards. Give me the evidence, all copies. I'll verify it's complete. If you're telling the truth, you'll hear from me in 24 hours. If you're lying, we won't hear from you at all because we'll be dead, Grace finished. Understood. The handoff happened quickly. USB drives exchanged. Brief instructions, all captured on camera for the thousands watching. When it was done, Taesung nodded once, almost respectfully, and walked away, his guards melting into the tourist crowd. Grace and Kang stood at the observation deck, Seoul spreading below them like a promise or a threat. The stream was still live, the audience still watching, waiting for resolution. That's it, Grace told the camera. We made the offer, now we wait. She ended the stream with 11,000 viewers, the most she'd ever had for anything. The comments were overwhelming. Support, questions, fear, admiration. Someone had already screen recorded the entire meeting, posting it on multiple platforms. Within an hour, it would be everywhere. Did we just win or lose? Grace asked as they descended in the cable car. I don't know, Kang admitted, but we survived. That's something. They returned to the compound in silence, both too exhausted for conversation. Grace went to her room, intending to crash, but sleep wouldn't come. Her mind churned through scenarios, probabilities, the 100 ways this could still go wrong. Around midnight, Kong knocked on her door. When she opened it, he stood in the hallway looking older than his 73 years, the weight of decades visible in his posture. Can't sleep either? Grace asked. No, he hesitated. May I come in? They sat by her window, watching the garden's frost gleam in moonlight. For a long time, neither spoke. Then Kong said quietly, I've been thinking about Dae-hyun, about how he must have felt those last weeks, trapped between his love for you and his fear of my world catching you. He tried to protect me. Yes, and failed because in this life, protection is an illusion. You can build walls, but walls have cracks. You can run, but running has limits. Kong's voice was tired. I've spent 50 years believing that power equaled safety. The more feared I was, the more secure. But watching you these past days, seeing how you fight with intelligence instead of violence, maybe I've had it wrong the whole time. Grace felt something crack in her chest, some defense she'd maintained. You've kept me alive. That's not nothing. I've also made you a target, taught you to navigate darkness, dragged you deeper into a world you should have escaped. He looked at her then, really looked, and Grace saw guilt and grief and something else she couldn't name. You deserve better than this. Better than what? Better than surviving? Better than learning I'm stronger than I thought? Grace shook her head. I spent my whole life playing it safe. Safe job, safe relationships, safe dreams. Then I met Dae-hyun and nothing was safe anymore. And it was terrifying and exhilarating and real. I don't want to go back to safe. Safe is just another word for half alive. Even if it kills you? Even then. They sat with that truth, the reckless honesty of it hanging between them. Outside, Seoul hummed with nighttime energy, millions of lives intersecting in darkness. Kong's hand found hers, rough and warm. You remind me why I used to believe the world was worth saving. Grace's heart stuttered. The moment felt dangerous, charged with something she didn't want to name. He was her father-in-law, Dae-hyun's father. 73 years old, a life built on violence, decades of choices she'd never understand. But he was also the person who'd seen her clearly, who'd taught her to fight, who'd stood beside her when running would have been easier. Kong, she started. Her phone buzzed. Both of them jumped, the spell breaking. Grace checked the message, her blood running cold. It was from Taesung. The evidence checks out, but I can't let this stand. You've embarrassed me, exposed my operations publicly. My reputation is all I have. I'm sorry, Grace. You were almost impressive enough to save. The attack comes at dawn. Use the time to say goodbye. Kong read over her shoulder, his expression hardening. We need to evacuate, now. Where? He knows everywhere we could hide. He's had days to position people. Then we fight. With what? Your team can't hold off a full-scale assault. They stared at each other, the reality sinking in. They'd played the game as well as they could, but sometimes the game was rigged from the start. Then Grace's phone buzzed again. Different number. The message was brief. Check the news. You might find it interesting. A friend. She pulled up a news site, scanning headlines, then froze. Major corruption bust. Gangnam crime boss arrested. The article detailed early morning raids on young Tae-sung's operations. Multiple properties hit simultaneously. Evidence of money laundering, murder for hire, government corruption. Arrests already made, more pending. The operation had been months in planning, but accelerated due to anonymous tips and credible evidence. Grace and Kong stared at the screen. The prosecutors, Grace whispered. The evidence we sent them, they moved fast. Impossibly fast, Kong said. Unless they were already investigating, and we just gave them what they needed to act. Grace's mind raced. Tae-sung sending that message, he didn't know he'd already been arrested. The police must have hit him right after he texted. Another message arrived. You played this well. Tae-sung will be occupied for a very long time. Consider this my thanks for the comprehensive evidence package. Stay safe. Prosecutor Huang. Grace started laughing, the sound edged with hysteria. We did it! We actually did it! Kong was quieter, reading the article carefully. Tae-sung's entire organization is compromised. His partners, his operations, his political connections. This isn't just an arrest, it's a complete dismantling. Good. Grace, this means we're free. Actually free. No threats, no dead man switches, no more hiding. The weight of that hit her slowly. Free. The word felt foreign. Impossible. She'd spent so long in survival mode that peace felt like a lie, like something that would be ripped away any moment. But Kang was smiling, real and true, and Grace found herself smiling back. Tears on her cheeks she hadn't felt arrive. They'd done it. Against probability, against experience, against every expectation, they'd survived. The days after Tae-sung's arrest passed in strange quiet. Grace found herself adrift, the adrenaline crash leaving her hollow and exhausted. She stayed in Kang's compound, neither of them quite ready to separate, both processing what survival actually meant. Seoul continued its rhythm outside, indifferent to their personal apocalypse and resurrection. The news cycle moved on from Tae-sung's arrest to other scandals, other crises. Grace's livestream had garnered brief attention, conspiracy theorists and true crime enthusiasts dissecting every frame, but that too faded as the internet found new distractions. 3 weeks after their Namsan Tower meeting, Grace was packing her things. Not to leave Korea, she'd decided to stay, at least for now, but to find her own place, somewhere that wasn't borrowed sanctuary. Kang found her in the guest room, watching her sort through clothes. You don't have to go, he said. I can't hide here forever. It's not hiding, it's... He paused, searching for words. It's staying. Grace turned to face him. He looked different in casual clothes. Jeans and a simple shirt, the uniform of Seoul's wealthy elderly, disguising layers of complexity. Without the armor of expensive suits, he seemed more human, more vulnerable. What happens now? She asked. For you, I mean. Tae-sung's gone, but that doesn't erase 50 years of history. I've been thinking about that. Kang moved to the window, the same view of the garden where Dae-hyun used to practice calligraphy. I could retire properly this time. Sell my holdings, liquidate assets, fade away. Or I could try something different. Use what I built for something that doesn't leave blood on everything I touch. Like what? The community center Dae-Hyun always wanted me to fund. Programs for kids who grow up like I did, like you did. Poor, forgotten, angry at systems that don't care. Give them options beyond crime or desperation. He glanced at her. I need help. Someone who understands both worlds, who can bridge them. Grace's heart kicked. You're offering me a job? I'm offering you a partnership, if you want it. The silence stretched between them, heavy with unspoken possibilities. Grace thought about what accepting would mean. Staying in Seoul, staying in Kang's orbit, building something from the ruins of violence and grief. I'll think about it, she said finally. That night, sleep eluded her again. Grace found herself in the garden at 2 a.m., frost crunching under her feet, breath misting in cold air. She'd brought Dae-Hyun's calligraphy supplies, found stored in a closet, and set them on the stone table where he used to work. She'd never learned the art, but she tried anyway, brush moving awkwardly across paper, creating characters she barely understood. It felt like prayer, like conversation with ghosts. You're holding the brush wrong. Grace jumped. Kang stood at the garden entrance, wrapped in a heavy coat, looking amused. It's 2 a.m. What are you doing awake? Same thing as you, avoiding sleep because dreams are complicated. He moved closer, examining her work. Here, like this. He adjusted her grip, his hand warm over hers, guiding the brush through proper strokes. Grace held still, hyper-aware of his presence, the way they fit together in this quiet moment. What does it mean? She asked, looking at the characters they'd created together. Strength in adversity. Dae-Hyun used to practice it constantly. Kang's voice was soft. I think he was reminding himself what he came from, what he'd survived. Like his father. Like his father. They stood together in the frozen garden, two people bound by grief and danger, and something neither would name. Finally, Kang spoke, his words careful. There's something I need to tell you about Dae-Hyun's accident. Grace's blood chilled. What about it? I know who cut the brake lines. One of Taesung's investigators found evidence during the arrest, video footage from a parking garage showing one of my old enemies, a man named Park Il-sung. He was sending a message, trying to draw me out of retirement by hurting my family. And you didn't tell me? I wanted to be sure, and I wanted to handle it quietly. Kang met her eyes. He's dead now. Car accident 3 days ago. Very tragic. Very thorough. Grace should have been shocked, should have condemned the violence, the vigilante justice. Instead, she felt only grim satisfaction. Good. Grace. No, don't apologize. Don't explain. He killed Dae-Hyun. You avenged him. That's justice in the only language these people understand. She turned to face him fully. I'm not the person I was 3 months ago. The woman who believed in courts and laws and fair trials. That woman died with my husband. I'm someone different now. Someone harder. Someone real. Kang's expression was unreadable. I've corrupted you. No, you've revealed me. There's a difference. Grace stepped closer. I spent my whole life pretending to be soft, civilized, safe. But I grew up watching my mother get crushed by systems that don't care. I know how the world actually works. You didn't teach me cruelty. You taught me how to weaponize what I already knew. That doesn't make it right. Maybe not, but it makes it honest. The frost glittered around them like broken glass. Grace could see her breath, Kang's breath, mingling in cold air. The moment felt suspended. Crystalline, like they were the only two people in Seoul's sprawling darkness. I should go back inside, Kang said, but he didn't move. Neither did Grace. Do you know why Dae-Hyun and I worked? She asked quietly. It wasn't because we were similar. We weren't. He was gentle. I was pragmatic. He believed in redemption, I believed in survival. But we fit because we saw each other clearly. No illusions, no pretending, just truth, even when it hurt. What's your point? My point is I see you clearly too. The violence, the guilt, the desperate attempt at redemption through me, and I'm not afraid of it. I'm not disgusted or horrified. I understand it because I've felt it too. That need to be better than what you've been, even when you don't quite know how. Kang's control was cracking. She could see it. The careful walls he maintained, the distance he'd kept since that first day at the bank. It was fracturing under honesty's weight. Grace, you're my son's widow. You're 30 years younger than me. I'm a grown woman making a choice, and you're a man who's earned his right to something beyond guilt. She held his gaze. I'm not asking for forever. I'm not asking for easy. I'm just asking, can we stop pretending there's nothing between us? The silence stretched. Then Kang's hand found her face, thumb brushing her cheek, the gesture tender and terrified all at once. This is a terrible idea, he said. Probably. People will judge. They'll say it's wrong, immoral, a betrayal of Dae-Yun's memory. Let them. Grace. His voice broke slightly. I'm not a good man. I've done things that would horrify you if you knew details. I've built an empire on fear and blood. I'm 73 years old, and I've never been faithful to anything except power. You deserve better. Stop telling me what I deserve. I'm standing right here, making my own choice, with full knowledge of who you are. Grace's voice was steady, certain. You're my father-in-law. This breaks every rule, but we've broken worse rules to survive, and I'm tired of pretending survival is the only thing that matters. Something shifted in Kang's expression. The last wall coming down, the final defense collapsing. If we do this, if we cross this line, there's no going back. Not to normal, not to safe, not to any version of our lives that makes sense. Good. I'm done with sense. He kissed her then, fierce and desperate, 50 years of control shattering against 3 months of shared danger and grief. Grace kissed back, pouring into it everything she couldn't say, the fear, the gratitude, the strange, twisted bond they'd forged in blood and trust. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, Grace saw tears on Kang's face. Dae-Yun would hate this, he said quietly. Maybe, or maybe he'd understand that love doesn't follow rules, and healing happens in strange ways. Grace touched his face. We can't change the past. We can't bring him back. All we can do is choose how we survive what's left. Is that what this is? Survival? No, Grace smiled, sad and true. This is living. There's a difference. They stood in the frozen garden, two broken people finding unexpected wholeness in each other's damage. Soul sprawled around them, indifferent and eternal, while they rewrote their own futures with choices that would scandalize anyone who knew the truth. So what now? Kang asked. Now we go inside before we freeze, and tomorrow we start building that community center you talked about. We turn your blood money into something clean. Grace laced her fingers through his, and we stop apologizing for finding comfort in each other. We've earned the right to be selfish about this one thing. Kang nodded, something like peace settling over his features. Partners, then, in every sense. Partners. They walked back to the house together, leaving footprints in frost that would melt by morning. Behind them, the garden held its secrets. Dae-Yun's memory, their forbidden choice, the strange alchemy that had transformed grief into something almost like hope. Inside, warmth enveloped them. Kang poured whiskey while Grace started a fire in his study's fireplace. They sat together reviewing plans for the community center, conversation shifting between business strategy and comfortable silence, the ease of two people who'd seen each other's worst and chosen to stay anyway. Around 4 a.m., exhausted, Grace started to stand. "Stay," Kang said quietly. "Here? Here. We've spent enough nights alone with our ghosts. Time to try something different." Grace settled back beside him, her head finding his shoulder with surprising naturalness. His arm came around her, secure and solid, and for the first time since Dae-Hyun's death, she felt genuinely safe. "This is going to be complicated," she murmured. "Yes. People are going to judge. Yes. We might regret it. Probably. But right now, in this moment, it feels right. Yes." They fell asleep like that, tangled together in Kang's study, frost melting in the garden outside, soul waking to a new day that had no idea how thoroughly two lives had shifted overnight. When Grace woke, sunlight was streaming through windows, and Kang was watching her with an expression she couldn't quite read. "What?" she asked. "Just thinking how strange life is. 3 months ago, I was ready to die quietly, having failed my son in every way that mattered. Now I'm here, with you, planning futures I never thought I'd see." He brushed hair from her face. "You've given me something I thought I'd lost forever." "What's that?" "A reason to be better than I've been." Grace smiled, then kissed him again, slower this time, less desperate. This kiss tasted like morning coffee and possibility, like bridges burned and new paths forward. "We should probably talk about boundaries," she said when they broke apart. "Ground rules, expectations, how public we are about this. Or we could just see what happens, let it unfold naturally." "That's very unlike you. You're Mr. Strategy, Mr. 10 steps ahead." "Maybe you're teaching me something too." Kang stood, offering his hand. "Come on, let's get breakfast and start planning this community center properly. If we're going to scandalize Seoul society, we might as well do something worthwhile at the same time." They spent the day working, falling into easy collaboration. Grace's legal background and Kang's business acumen meshed surprisingly well. By evening, they had a framework, location identified, budget allocated, programming outlined. They'd hire people from the community, fund education initiatives, create alternatives for kids who might otherwise end up in lives like Kang's had been. It was ambitious, maybe impossible, but they'd survived worse odds. A week later, they held the first meeting with potential partners, local activists, educators, former gang members turned community advocates. Grace watched Kang navigate the room, saw how people responded to his careful honesty about his past. He didn't hide what he'd been. Instead, he used it as credential, proof that change was possible even after decades of wrong choices. "Mr. Kang," one young activist said, "why should we trust you? You've caused massive harm in this city." "You shouldn't trust me," Kang replied simply. "You should watch what I do, hold me accountable, and make sure I can't corrupt this project even if I wanted to. Grace here will be the public face, the actual operator. I'm just funding and strategic support. If I step wrong, she'll be the first to call it out." The activist looked at Grace. "Is that true?" "Completely," Grace said. "I'm not here to redeem anyone. I'm here to build something that helps people who need it. Kang's money makes that possible, but the work itself, that's going to be clean, transparent, and accountable. Anyone who tries to undermine that, including him, gets removed. No exceptions." Respect flickered across faces. The meeting continued, productive and promising. By the end, they had commitments, volunteers, momentum. Walking back to Kang's car afterward, Grace felt something unfamiliar. Optimism. "We might actually pull this off." "We will pull this off," Kang said. He opened her door. "Because you don't do anything halfway." They drove through Seoul's evening traffic, comfortable silence between them. Grace watched the city lights, thinking about how much had changed in 3 months. She'd come to this country as Dae-Hyun's widow, lost and grieving. Now she was something else, Partner, operator, survivor, lover, each complex and controversial, but authentically hers. What are you thinking? Kang asked. That I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be, even though it makes no sense. Life rarely makes sense. It just happens, and we adapt or break. Which are we doing? Kang's smile was soft. I think we're doing both, breaking our old selves to adapt into something new. They reached the compound as stars emerged in Seoul's light-polluted sky. Inside, the house felt different now. Not borrowed sanctuary, but home. They cooked dinner together, arguing playfully about seasoning, dancing around each other in the kitchen with the ease of people learning to be happy. Later, in Kang's study, they reviewed final details for the community center launch. We need a name, Grace said, something that represents what we're building. What about the bridge? Kang suggested. It connects past and future, different worlds, broken people to new possibilities. Grace considered this, then nodded. The Bridge Community Center. I like it. Honest about what we're trying to do. Unlike us, which are entirely dishonest about what we're trying to do. Are we dishonest or just complicated? Both, probably. Kang pulled her close. But I've decided I'm okay with complicated. Simple was overrated anyway. They kissed again. Softer now. The desperate urgency of early days fading into something steadier. This wasn't the wild passion of new romance. It was deeper, stranger. The bond of two people who'd survived hell together and chosen to build something from the ashes. I should probably call my sister, Grace said. Let her know I'm staying in Seoul long term. She's going to have questions. What will you tell her? The truth. That I found purpose here. That I'm building something meaningful. That I'm happy, even though happiness looks nothing like I expected. And about us? Grace smiled. I'll tell her I'm seeing someone. When she inevitably asks who, I'll say it's complicated, which is true. Very diplomatic. I learned from the best. They spent the rest of the evening planning, working, occasionally kissing, occasionally just sitting in comfortable silence. Outside, Seoul hummed with its endless energy, millions of stories unfolding simultaneously, most of them simpler than theirs, but no less real. Around midnight, Kang's phone buzzed. He checked it, then showed Grace the message. It was from Prosecutor Huang. Thought you'd want to know. Tae-sung's trial starts next month. Looks like he's cooperating, giving up bigger players to reduce his sentence. Your evidence was the key that broke everything open. Well done. Grace felt satisfaction wash through her. Dae-hyun would be proud. We finished what he started. We did more than that. We built something new from what he left behind. Kang set down his phone. That's the best honor we can give him. Do you think he'd forgive us? For this? Grace gestured between them, meaning the relationship they'd built from grief and danger. Kang was quiet for a long moment. I think Dae-hyun understood love better than either of us. He'd see that this isn't betrayal. It's two broken people finding unexpected healing. He'd want us to be happy, even if happiness looks unconventional. I hope you're right. So do I. They went to bed together that night, wrapped in each other's warmth. The future uncertain, but no longer terrifying. They'd faced death and worse, had crossed lines that couldn't be uncrossed, had chosen each other despite every reason not to, and somehow, impossibly, it felt right. 6 months later, the Bridge Community Center opened in a renovated building in Songbuk-dong. The launch drew unexpected crowds, local families, politicians hedging their bets, media outlets curious about the notorious Kang Joon-ho's redemption project. Grace stood at the podium, facing 300 people, feeling surprisingly calm. This center exists because of two truths, she said in practiced Korean. Her accent still obvious, but her fluency improved. First, people deserve second chances. Second, change is possible even when it seems impossible. My late husband believed that. Mr. Kang believes it. And everyone we've hired to run this place believes it. She outlined the programs: after-school tutoring, job training, mental health services, legal aid for those who couldn't afford it, everything designed to give people options, pathways out of desperation and into dignity. Kang sat in the front row, pride evident on his face. Beside him sat Yoon and Tae Min, his old crew now volunteering as security and mentors. Violence redeployed towards protection, blood money turned towards healing. After the speeches, people toured the facility. Grace watched families explore classrooms, saw kids light up at the computer lab, noticed elderly residents examining the community space with cautious hope. This was real. This was working. You did well, Kang said, finding her in a quiet hallway. The speech, the execution, all of it. We did well, Grace corrected. This is ours. Yes, ours. They stood together, watching through a window as Seoul's evening light painted the city gold. 6 months ago, they were strangers united only by grief and survival. Now they were partners in every sense: business, purpose, heart. What comes next? Grace asked. More centers, other cities. We scale this until it's not just one building, but a movement. Kang's voice held determination. We can't fix everything, can't undo the past, but we can build futures for people who might otherwise have none. Ambitious. We've earned the right to be ambitious. Grace smiled, leaning into him. Through the window, she saw families leaving the center, faces lighter than when they'd arrived. Small victories, incremental change, the opposite of dramatic violence, but no less powerful. Her phone buzzed. Message from her sister in London. Saw the news about your community center. Mom would be proud. I'm proud. When do I get to meet this mysterious someone you keep mentioning? Grace typed back. Soon, I promise. It's complicated, but good. Everything okay? Kang asked. Yeah, just family checking in. Grace pocketed her phone. You ready for the dinner? All the major donors want FaceTime. As ready as I'll ever be. You? I faced worse than rich people wanting acknowledgement. They laughed, the sound easy and real. Then they walked back toward the main hall together, two people who'd found unexpected wholeness in shared damage, ready to charm donors and build futures, and navigate the beautiful, complicated mess they'd chosen. Behind them, through the center's windows, Seoul glittered like promise. Somewhere in that sprawling city, people were making choices, good and bad, simple and complex, safe and dangerous. Grace and Kang had made their choice too, and despite its controversy, despite its complications, it felt true. They'd earned this bond through fire and blood, through grief and survival, through choosing each other when logic said to run. It wasn't a fairy tale, it was something better, real, raw, forged in consequence, and sealed in mutual recognition of damage and hope. And as they entered the hall full of donors and well-wishers, hands brushing briefly in secret solidarity, both knew they'd do it all again. Every dangerous choice, every crossed line, every moment that brought them here. Because some bonds can't be explained or justified. They can only be earned. And this one was theirs. The end.